Angel Heart Radio programs should not be used to replace your legal or medical advice. Welcome everyone to Angel Heart Radio. You are our focus. We want you to know that you matter in the world and that you're important to the world. We're here to remind you of just how valuable and needed you are right now. Help us to help others. If you like what you hear, tell your friends, post, tweet, pin, let everyone know how amazing Angel Heart Radio is. So again, welcome to Angel Heart Radio. Powered by Love, Angel Heart Radio is sponsored by AngelLight777.com.
Hello everyone, Annette McCoy with you again. Yes, I've had a wonderful time over the past 3 weeks, and it's always delightful to be back on air, especially when I've had a break. I hope you enjoyed Anaya and Janet a couple of weeks ago, and I know that there was a wonderful rerun last week, and today I'm here and Marney Perna will join me very, very shortly, almost imminently. I did want to say that I am delighted to be with you, and I trust that wherever you are very glad to hear we here on Angel Heart Radio, because this particular network is powered by love, and that is our mission, to spread the love, if you like, and to explain to you, our valued listeners, how important love is, especially self-love. And I trust that today's program with Marney, where we're discussing coping with emotions that arise on special days, I hope this is of interest to you. If it is, let us know, and be sure to know that you can share anything that you find of interest on Angel Heart Radio with your friends. Be happy to post on Angel Heart Radio Facebook page. Spread the knowledge, because we can always do with more love in this world. And the more that we can spread our love, the better off this world is. Marney Perna is a wonderful, loving human being who spreads her love in so many different ways. Yes, she's a kinesiologist. Yes, she's an author, a speaker, a networker. Marney, welcome.
Thank you, Annette, and welcome back. Lovely to have you back on air.
Well, thank you. It's always lovely to be here, and I'm very blessed, Marney, to be able to do the travel that I do. I always smile. One day I can be on the other side of the world. This time it was London and Prague, and then whoop, a day later I'm home again. And
it's lovely getting home. I know it's great travelling, but I find personally I love getting back to my home. It's always, as you say, a blessing.
It is. Yes, I'm very, very grateful for all that I'm able to do, and it's quite true. There is no place quite like home. It's always a joy to come back. That's what I like about going away. I love the adventures that I go on, and I also delight in coming home and reconnecting, but being around family and friends again. It's good fun.
Yep.
So I could say that was one of my special days yesterday, coming home and getting in touch with family members. Of course, today we're talking about special days, as in how do we deal with anniversaries, birthdays, special holidays, especially if we've lost loved ones or loved pets. It's on those days as well. It can happen any day, I am well aware of that. But sometimes it's those special days that, emotions come up. And at times we think that we've dealt with them. And then, boom, boom, it'll go whack, won't it, right in our face or in our stomach?
Absolutely. And sometimes we're prepared for the bigger days, and it's the smaller ones that we haven't quite got it into our system that they're going to come up and have to be dealt with as well. But, you know, your birthdays, Mother's Day, Father's Day, Christmas, or special times of the year that meant something to you and the person you've loved, can bring up different emotions at different times. And all of them are quite natural. Grief is a very individual journey. There is no right or wrong with grief. The only thing I share with my clients is that grief should also not totally impact you in your life. So I often get my clients, when they're dealing with severe grief, to tell them it's okay and how can we help you through that, but also give yourself a time limit. So, you know, if something's been really ongoing and you're feeling quite debilitated by it all, that's not helping you at all. So you have to learn how to put a limit on the grief, or give yourself permission to put a limit on it. It's not saying you should. It's just saying, okay, well, I think one of the suckiest things about grief and the loss of a loved one is that everything goes back to normal. Like, you still have to eat, you still have to shop, you've got to make your bed, you've got to have a shower, you've got to feed the kids, you've got to do everything that's a normal part of your daily life. And yet you're saying, how on earth can that be happening when my whole life is just crashed down in front of me? I still have to do all these things. So you're kind of having to sort of, you know, go on to almost autopilot. So you really need to give yourself permission to have space where you have permission from yourself and stuff everyone else to grieve. But I get my clients to put a time limit on that. So if one day particularly you wake up and it's just hitting you like, you know, it's just absolutely shattering your heart, say to yourself, I need to nurture myself today. I need to let myself just either wallow or cope, but I'm going to do it for an hour or an hour and a half, or make it an unusual time like 37 minutes. All right, because that's different. It's not the same as giving yourself an hour or something. It's a specific time, and it's a time that's come to you. And if you do that, it helps you to then pick up again and go through the day-to-day process of what's going on.
Well, I think there are two parts to that, Marnie, that I really like. One is that I'm giving myself permission to grieve, and another one is, well, yes, I'm also helping myself to cope with it by putting a time limit on it. Yeah.
It doesn't mean you're not grieving. It means you're just protecting yourself. You're nurturing yourself to be able to cope better. Yeah.
Right. And of course, we're talking specifically about grief at the moment. However, it can be anything. We can be feeling quite down or troubled about situations. And so again, it's a similar idea to give ourselves permission to feel the way that we feel. You know, quite often it's like, oh, well, I'm not to have negative feelings. It's really important that we acknowledge that we have negative feelings, and then again put a time limit on it, or how am I going to deal with this?
Yeah. So it's really good to remember that language, and any language that you're using, has a vibrational energy attached to it. All right. So if you're feeling grief, you're already in a low vibrational energy. If you then add guilt onto that, you're making it even heavier and lower. So what you're needing to do is nurturing the emotion that you're feeling. So how can I allow myself to feel that emotion without also adding to it all the negative aspects of life? All right. So, and when you give yourself permission to care and nurture and love yourself, and if that means I have a bad hair day and I need to accept that and value that, your body says, oh, thank you so much. I really needed that time to recalibrate and regroup. Because if you just keep soldiering on, the body says, but I'm giving you all these messages. I'm telling you I'm feeling at a low and overwhelmed. And if you don't listen, something will come along and just take your feet out from under you. And then your body says, well, now can you listen? So you really do need to start honouring yourself in any situation. And a lot of people say, oh, that's so selfish. Well, no, it's not selfish. It's a form of survival. Keep yourself safe and you can help others. If you're in a constant state of danger and don't feel safe, or a constant state of adrenal overwhelm, you have not got the potential to help other people, whether that's your children or your family or your work, or just people on the road when you're driving in that condition, because you're not conscious. You're working on autopilot, and when you're driving, you do not need to work on autopilot. You need to be mindful and aware.
Yes, yes, yes. Now, Marney, we love chatting, and especially to listeners. So,
we do.
Listeners, if you have a situation, how have you dealt with special days after the passing of a loved one? Or how have you coped if you suddenly no longer have a job? How have you coped if you've lost your home? I look at what's happening in the world at the moment, Marney. My goodness me. Mother Earth is saying, wake up, wake up, wake up.
Yeah. Yes. And look, even if the listeners feel, I'm not sure how they're feeling, ring up and we'll use some magic and some isolate or identify a couple of the feelings that you might be feeling and what meridian systems you're holding that in. So grief of any kind is generally held in your large intestine meridian. So your large intestine is your body's ability to release the waste that is no longer required. So if you're hanging on to guilt and grief and regret and all those kind of heavier energies, you're actually impacting your body in a physical level as well. You will often have a digestive or an elimination challenge. That could be diarrhea, it could be irritable bowel, it could be constipation. It's that thought of hanging on to what is no longer required that the body goes, oh my God, I'm not sure what I'm doing here. So it gets quite out of sync with what it's meant to be doing.
Right.
And it's part of the metal element in the Chinese philosophy. So it's co-partnering that sort of thing is the lungs. So we get a lot of grief when we're in a lot of grief. We have a lot of lung issues because we're crying, we're holding our breath, we're not coping well with our breathing. So they kind of go hand in hand. So sometimes you do need some assistance in dealing with those aspects of life.
Yes, and the assistance is here. So if you're feeling a little down, a little threatened, a little challenged, a little unsure of what to do, Marney is here. So if you're in America, it's really easy because all you have to do is to punch in the area code 714-583-6858. And if you are anywhere else in the world, you have to put the +1 in front of 714-583-6858. And ringing from around the world is so much easier these days, Marney. Of course, what we do need to be careful of are the charges. Make sure that it is a relatively cost-effective phone call, which I have to say, phone calls are getting cheaper and cheaper and cheaper, more available. I know now I can ring most places in the world on my mobile, and it's within my plan, which is fabulous.
Absolutely. We're very lucky, and communication nowadays is so much easier. So it's easier to pick the phone up and talk to someone, even if they're in another country, and ask how they're feeling and how are they coping. The other thing I find with grief, a lot of people don't talk about it. So you might have lost somebody and people don't know what to say. So rather than say the wrong thing, they're inclined to just avoid it or not say anything. And that has its own challenge as well, because you're then thinking, well, maybe it's wrong to be thinking of this person or mentioning this person. So it's kind of giving you mixed messages as well. And look, if you can say nothing else to someone, say, can I give you a hug? How are you feeling? How are you coping? Not a lot I can do, and I can't put myself, the worst thing to do is to say, I know exactly how you feel. You might say, I have fair idea how you may be feeling, but can I give you a hug? A hug is a universal acknowledgement of care and concern. So, just give someone a hug. If you can't think of anything else to say, words escape me, but here's a hug. And it's quite burdenful sometimes.
Well, that's true. How often do we say, even on special occasions like a new mum, and I might think, I don't know. I know my daughter-in-law was like, I don't know when to ring. With this day and age of phones that we have, our phones can be on silent. And I was delighted to know that if Beth was sleeping or doing something where she didn't want to be disturbed, her phone was on silent. And so it meant that I could try and ring, I could send messages, so she knew that I was here. And exactly. Because the thing is, the same if somebody calls in and says, you weren't home. Well, it's delightful to come home and know that I've missed somebody and that somebody has taken the time to call. So to leave a note under the door to say, I just popped in to see you. It's wonderful, as against going away, you're disappointed because I haven't been home, and then I don't know until we next connect that I've missed
popped in
an unexpected visitor. So it's how we deal with something, isn't it, Marnie? That's
it is.
So important, and it can make such a difference.
And we have to know that it's we all deal with it differently, and that's okay as well. And I know you would know that May is a month that was always very special to me. It was my mum's birthday month. It was always a lovely month in Australia as well. And we have a lot of birthdays around the May-June area. And I can't believe it's 18 months since my mum passed. And her birthday this year, I'm thinking, oh my God, how am I going to deal with this? And it was added to this time with, I've had an elderly dog. Now, my little dog Bailey was ill just before Mum got quite ill. And we used to think, they're level pegging each other. 1 minute we think Mum's going to go, the next minute we think the dog's going to go, and we didn't know who was going to go first altogether. And the funny thing was, Mum was my dog's protector. So if she was in trouble up here in the house, she would run down to the granny flat and hide behind Mum. So, it made a lot of sense that they were pegging each other. And we had to allow our dog to have her final rest about a fortnight ago. But it was like watching my mum die again, and it brought up a lot of really severe emotions for me, because I felt the same thing. Like, she started to go off her food, and I said, oh my God, it's all starting again. So it's flicking a lot of traumatic memories. At the same time, you're trying to cope with life and business and everything else that's going on. And I couldn't understand why Bailey's passing affected me to the extent that it did, because we've had several pets pass. We're very blessed that our pets have longevity, but it makes it even harder when they finally go. And it was that realisation, it was that last link really to Mum, and it was just sucky. And also too, I'm not as busy now. Like when previous pets had passed, you had young families, or there was always lots that you were having to just pick up and go and do. Whereas I work from home, I'm my own boss. My husband and I are here together, so that we haven't got a lot of kids and stuff around. So suddenly you have time to grieve as well. And you think, oh my God, But it was a couple of weeks that haven't been my best, let's put it that way. So I really did have to deal with quite a few emotions that, again, I thought I had dealt with. And no way, not a chance.
Well, you had. It was just that they were a bit deeper.
Yeah, I know. And we were talking off air, and I said I felt like a murderer because I had to put my dog down. And look, I have two thoughts on that. I understand that I had to be adult, and it was up to me as the adult to say to Bailey, oh, thank you so much, my darling, it's now time for you to leave. But on the other hand, making that decision made me feel quite, have I done enough? Have I done everything that I know to keep her here or to help her cope better? And you know the answer is yes. But it still didn't help some of those emotions that popped up that said, really, have you sure you've done enough?
The self-doubt.
Oh, definitely. And we've got a beautiful gum tree on our property, and we're very lucky to live on acreage. And I counted, and we have 8 of our blessed family members under that gum tree. And
right.
So with our dogs and cats and birds, and I was saying to someone, I even think there's a goldfish there because I couldn't flush it down the toilet. I had to give it a little burial. So the gum trees, it's been a lovely addition to our family, and it gives us somewhere to say, oh, the pets are under the tree, so they're still looking after us. So, yeah.
Very
so how,
nice.
I was thinking of different ways that I could share with the listeners how to deal with grief. Okay, and as I said, the main thing is to allow yourself permission to deal with grief. Many years ago, I cared for a beautiful young client who had since passed, and it was in that caring for the client that I came across this delightful story that was written by an anonymous person but is used quite well. And I share this story with many clients, both here and overseas. And I'd like to read it. It doesn't go for very long, but I'd just like our listeners to listen to it and understand the message that's coming from it. It's especially useful when you've lost someone who's a bit younger. Okay, so that might help you. So it's called The Dragonfly. Once in a little pond in the muddy water under the lily pad, there lived a little water beetle in a community of water beetles. They lived a simple and comfortable life in the pond with few disturbances and interruptions. Once in a while, sadness would come to the community when one of their fellow beetles would climb the stem of the lily pad and would never be seen again. They knew when this happened, their friend was dead, gone forever. And one day, one little water beetle felt an irresistible urge to climb up that stem. However, he was determined he would not leave forever. He would come back and tell his friends all that he found on the top. When he reached the top and climbed out of the water onto the surface of the lily pad, he was so tired, and the sun felt so warm that he decided to take a nap. As he slept, his body changed, and when he woke up, he had turned into a beautiful blue-tailed dragonfly with broad wings and a slender body designed for flying. So fly he did. And as he soared, he saw the beauty of a whole new world and a far superior way of life than he had known to exist. Then he remembered his beetle friends and how they were thinking by now he was dead. He wanted to go back and tell them and explain to them that he was now more alive than he had ever been. His life had been fulfilled rather than ended. But his new body would not go down into the water. He could not get back to tell his friends the good news. But then he understood that their time would come when they too would know what he knew now. So he raised his wings and flew off into his joyous new life forever. It's a really lovely poem.
It's beautiful.
Yeah. So, the realisation is there that there is something after death, and what we need to focus on are the memories, are the nice memories that we've had, and focus on those. And it doesn't mean that people are perfect, because people are people and warts and all. So you can acknowledge the warts, but you don't need to focus on it. So what you do is you say, well, maybe that was the case. However, something positive also happened. So that's what you need to remember, is the blessings that you were given in life and the memories that those blessings now give you to cope with life without that person. So if people need a copy of that, they can always contact me at info@kinesiologist.com, and I can send them a PDF of that poem. And as I said, I've sent it all around the world to people who have experienced a loved one's passing. And it is an anonymous. I didn't write it, but it came to me after this client had passed. It was a gift from her, I believe. So.
Beautiful. Now, Marney, people can connect with you, info@kinique.com. They can also visit that wonderful website, kinique.com. That's KINIQUE.com. MarneyPerna.com. And
Yep.
I know you put a lot into and onto your website. And, of course,
Yes.
people can connect with you there, and they can connect with you on Facebook as well. You're very open to
I am.
connections.
And they can always send a message to Angel Heart Radio as well if they're looking for us. So we get the message from there as well.
That's right. So people, please reach out. And in this day, it doesn't matter where you are. Marnie's in Brisbane, Australia. However, she's available on Skype to do sessions no matter where we are in the world or country, which is fabulous.
All I ask that people email me their Skype handle first, because it's just one of the things that I do. I say yes to them personally rather than just getting a whole heap of random comments made.
Very good. It's interesting, Marnie, when you were speaking before about grief and how you thought you dealt with things.
Yeah.
Barry, my husband, as a lot of people know, passed 18 years ago. And I still have times, and one of the times is when I'm sitting in an aeroplane watching a movie. And fortunately, I had said to the couple sitting beside me on this recent trip, I get into the movies and I usually sob. I don't know that I used the word sob. I know I did say I usually cry. Well, sure enough, there was a movie and I sobbed and sobbed. Yeah. It's incredible. However, I know that it's a release, and I'm very grateful for the opportunity to release those feelings. So hopefully that helps our listeners, because sometimes we do tend to put a timeline on and think, oh, goodness me, why aren't you over it? And we give ourselves chats. But no, I mean, people have meant lots to us, and the longer we have them, sometimes the harder it is to release our feelings.
And sometimes it's the little things as well. It's not always the big things.
That's right.
My mother-in-law, I had my sister-in-laws in Mackay were her daily helpers. So, if she needed shopping, they would go and shop for her. And I remember one of my sister-in-laws saying it was so hard going to order her bread order from this bakery because she always ordered extra for Nuna, and suddenly she didn't have to. So it was one of those everyday things that she went, oh my God, it felt so wrong that I wasn't doing it. It kind of exacerbated it. So, but there are tools that we can use to help ourselves. I'm having a little. You don't have to have a mausoleum to your loved one or pet or whatever, whoever you've lost or whatever you've lost. But there's nothing to stop you having a memory corner. So we have memory corners in our house, or memory places where people that have passed on are still there, and we say hello to them as we pass, or we wave to them, or on their day, on their birthday. I don't believe in celebrating so much the anniversary of the passing. I believe that's an end time, but my blessing and my gratitude is more on their born time. So the day they were born, or the special day that we had with them, rather than their passing day. I'm not connecting to that as much, even though I'm aware of it. It's not one of my blessed. I don't tell people so much for going on this day, but I am more inclined to talk to them, or just light a little candle, or I'll find a feather. That's the other thing. When we were walking down to lay Bailey to rest, I hadn't found some feathers for a couple of weeks prior to that, and yet we live on acreage, so you'd think there'd be lots of them. And walking down with Bailey to lay her to rest, I found 3 different feathers at different places, different sizes. And I knew that was Mum saying to me, it's okay, I've got her. You're not dealing with her anymore. I've found her, I've got her, and this is my acknowledgement to you that she's okay. And I went, that was so awesome. It didn't stop the grief and the hurt, but it helped. It helped nurture me. It helped bless me. It helped say to my heart, it's okay. Let's put a bit of glue on that and put it back together, And so there's different things you can do. So have a little memory area. And as I said, it doesn't have to be huge. It just has to be an acknowledgement. or it might be an item that person loves. You know, it could be an old tie. But, you know, with your husband, there might be a tie somewhere that you look at and go, they love that tie. And that's what you need to do, is touch base with them. You don't have to go into, you know, a major meltdown. You just need to acknowledge that their existence made a difference in your life. Because that's where it comes from. So I'm getting ready to create my coffee chat book, which is my memory of the last probably 18 months, without me knowing it, the last 18 months of sharing mum with coffee and cakes and things like that. And it's my way of gifting to other people to say, look, you don't know when your time's up. So make the most of it now and acknowledge it. And as you say, go and see people or ring them if you need to, or give them a hug or do something with them that when they're not there, you've got it. You know, how blessed are we nowadays with our mobile phones? We can take photos till the cows come home. And we've got them. You know, we don't have to go and buy a little roll and put it in the camera and then remember to take your camera, because you take your phone with you. So, you know, use your photos, make a collage out of them. You know, do something that helps you to feel nurtured and loved. And there's beautiful gemstones that you can use for grief as well. So gemstones have a vibrational energy of their own, and certain stones connect to certain vibrational emotions that we might be feeling. And rose quartz is one of them. So rose quartz is the healer of the heart. So to me, I often say to people, if you think about rose quartz, think about coconut ice. So if you're trying to bring it to your mind, think of the colour of coconut ice, that pretty pale pink with a bit of white with it, and the yummy taste and the coconut and all the niceness of it. But it's also the stone for healing a broken heart. It helps you to forgive, to love yourself. It fills your whole being. It's just a beautiful, gentle stone. So it's one of the ones that are very, very good if you're really dealing with a lot of brokenheartedness. And you will use language that helps you understand how you're feeling as well. So you might talk about, I'm heartsick for that, or I'm cut in two. I feel like I'm shattered. So all of those kind of words can often be giving you the little reminder that that's how your heart is feeling at the moment. You know, I've got shards, this deep shard cut. Anything that you use that could indicate that it's your heart that's being affected. You need to honour yourself and help your heart to feel better.
Giving ourselves is a good. Giving ourselves a hug is a really good thing too. You know, we can be quick to hug others. How often do we stop and surround ourselves with love by hugging ourselves?
There's a great meme that I found on social media once, and it's a picture of it. It's like a cartoony kind of picture. And it's one where it's got the skeleton of the body and a couple of the organs, but very, very simply done. And what it says is that when you put your both hands across yourself and hug yourself, you're actually giving all your organs a hug at the same time. So you're hugging your liver and your heart and your diaphragm and your lungs and everything by just giving yourself this great big squeezy hug. And the rib cage is helping to do it all as well. So give yourself a nice, big, solid hug. And it hugs all your organs as well.
Beautiful. The little tips that can make all the difference.
Yeah. Now remember also I mentioned that grief and regret and all those kind of heavier emotions are part of the lung meridian. Okay,
yes.
So some of the other emotions within that, so I'll just read out a few. So there's grief, regret, release, self-worth, enthusiasm, depression, letting go, apathy, compassion, toxic shame, powerlessness, things like that. Now they're all major emotions that when that emotion is felt by the body, the body system that looks after those emotions is the large intestine. Now, every body system has special points that are like, how do I put it there? They're like an accumulation point of that toxic emotion. Does that make sense to you? So they're like a point on the body that if you nurture that point, can help that emotion release and feel better. So the point for the large intestine, it's not one that I would use a lot. There's others that I often use, but the large intestine point is a little point. If you use your hand and feel over the back of your shoulder, just on the edge where the edge of the bones are, you'll actually feel a little divot in there.
Right.
If you put your finger on that point and move your arm around, and if you move your arm around, you'll find that divot. That point is the point for the large intestine meridian. So if you're feeling particularly overwhelmed by those kind of emotions, rub your hands together so that they get nice and warm and create some positive energy. Put your whole hand across the edge of your shoulder where your shoulder meets your arm. So don't panic about where the point is. But if you put your whole hand across that shoulder area, you'll get the point. And tell yourself you're loved and nurtured. And then do the same with the other arm. All right? Simple as what it helps is, says to the large intestine meridian, I feel your pain and here is some love. All right? And it's just a little thing that you can do to help yourself.
I like the way, Marnie, you do it on both sides, because that's keeping the body in balance as well.
Yeah, we are bilateral. We have a left and a right. So you generally deal with both things. So, and look, if you forget to do one side, if you've been drawn to do a particular side, honour that intuition and go with that. All right, because you're being told to do it for whatever reason. But as I said, a lot of people panic about, have I got the right point? Now, if I was an acupuncturist and I was needing to help a client with a particular point to deal with the build-up on that meridian, I would need to know the point I was using. As a self-help tool, your whole hand is the perfect size to get the point, so long as you're in the vicinity of the region. So by using your whole hand and covering your shoulder, where your shoulder meets your arm, you will get the point. You'll cover it. It's there.
Fabulous. So, being kind to ourselves, loving ourselves, giving ourselves permission to feel the way we do, and then, if necessary, putting a time limit on it. Yeah. What a shame to waste a whole day if we can pop those feelings into 37 minutes or 69 minutes or whatever it might be.
The idea of using an unusual time limit is it's quite specific. So you've mindfully thought of a time that you're giving yourself permission to do that for. All right? And look, sometimes if you're just feeling totally overwhelmed and overcome with grief, you may need a day. But don't let that day grow into a week. Don't let the week grow into a month. If you're feeling so fragile that you are on the edge of the cusp of life and death, seek help. Don't wait. You might use a couple of these tips for quick self-help, emergency kind of, let's get to the next stage. Reach out. Talk to someone. Don't try and do it all yourself, because, there's so many people that can help you deal with grief. And even if it's a friend who just takes you for a cup of coffee, you say to them, I don't need to talk. I just want some company. Will you meet me for coffee? By telling them that you don't need them to fix it, they're not worried about, oh my God, am I going to say the wrong thing? Just meet them, have a hug, and have a coffee. And reach out to people.
It's interesting, Marnie, because I know this is said a lot. If we break a bone or pull a muscle or we feel physically ill, we take ourselves off to the doctor. And that's accepted by ourselves, it's accepted by other people. And yet, for some reason, if we're having trouble with our thoughts in our head, if you like, we're loath to seek the help that we need.
Yeah, and it's because it's an emotional thing. It's not a tangible. I mean, personally, I believe emotions are tangible. I can see them sometimes. I can see the energy that people are feeling. But I was I'm doing a podcast interview in a couple of weeks' time, and I was asked, what is the solution, or what do clients say after they've come to see you? Because we were trying to narrow down what solution I was finding for people. And a lot of what I thought were solutions were actually methods. And I'm going, I don't really know. But people come to see kinesiologists and energy healers with an intangible illness. So it's not a physical. It's not like saying I've got a bent finger and suddenly my finger's straight. It's an emotional, it's a feeling that they have, and it's not always readily identified. However, I will usually get clients, when I ask them at the end, how do you feel? They will say to me things like, well, I'm not sure, but I think I have more hope, or I feel lighter, or I just feel different. I feel as though I'm on the mend again, or I'm finding my right pathway. So do that with yourself as well. It's not always tangible, but if people aren't, if you're not saying to people, I'm feeling this kind of emotion, how do they know to help you? Or how do they know that you're needing some help? Because you might be the sort of person who everyone thinks is fine and they're coping really well, but inside you're an absolute mess. Sometimes you need to be able to open your heart and say, I know I look like I'm coping, but I'm drowning here. Can someone help me? Even to just holding my hand or giving me a hug. They don't need to fix me. They just need to allow me permission, or give me permission to verbalize how I'm feeling inside. You know, so just be aware that people's facade can show you something totally different to what they're feeling as well. And be aware of that yourself. Be mindful of how the person may be feeling.
Yes. We cannot walk in somebody else's shoes. However, we can be aware. I liked earlier, Marnie, when you were saying, I think I get a sense of how you might be feeling, because one of my sons in particular is very quick to say, you don't know how I'm feeling. And that's quite true. You know, we don't know specifically how. And even if we've gone through a similar event, it doesn't mean that we're feeling exactly the same.
No,
However, we can have a sense of how someone else is feeling. And that is where a hug or dropping off flowers or what. There are lots of things that we can do to show that we care.
And what you were saying about I haven't walked in their shoes, so no, I don't know exactly how you're feeling. I may not have walked in your shoes, but I can walk beside you.
Yes.
You know, and it's as simple as that sometimes. I'm not trying to take over and tell you how you're feeling, but I can be here. I can be beside you and walk along with you so that, we're connected. So many times we try and fix other people's problems. I can remember being highly amazed and aghast when I realised after I started kinesiology that I couldn't fix everybody. I'd say, but kinesiology is fabulous, it does so much, and I can do this and I can do that and I can do something else. But you can't fix people. You can only you can facilitate their healing journey. And sometimes their healing journey cannot be long enough. So sometimes it's not up to you to have the skills to make the sudden turnaround. That's within. All you can do is give people choice and information and education and structural help. But their timeline mightn't have enough time in universal time to fit everything into it. So it's not that you're a failure. It's just that, yes, they might have been on the right path. I can remember being absolutely gutted when this young lass that passed away. She was 24. She was a baby. I had kids that age. It was just soul-destroying, and all the guilt and professional, oh, my God, did I do the right thing for her? Did I do enough? Came in, and you realised you had done enough. That was her journey. It wasn't your journey. Your journey was to help her with what she asked you to help her with. And that's what I said, that poem came out just after it. And it was read out at her celebration of life. And it was that message to say, yes, you did everything you needed to for me. This was my pathway. And that was okay.
Sure.
You know, but we're left behind. So the person who's passed has gained freedom and release, and they're out of their pain and their suffering, but we're still here. So we kind of, you know, we are having to deal with our pain and suffering at their loss, or at the loss of a job, or at the loss of, you know, and redundancy and bankruptcy and all those kind of things are very similar in their ability to hit you in the heart, because it's usually out of your control, and another person's passing is totally out of your control.
Yes. An interesting topic. We could go on and on and on. Marney, what's coming up for you that our listeners might like to hear about?
What's coming up for me? Well, I've got this podcast lined up at the end of the fortnight, so I'll be sharing the actual podcast with other people. And I've still got my online courses there, so if anyone's interested in learning some kinesiology skills, so self-help tips and techniques, I've put together an online learning course. So it's 29 mini videos. At the moment, it is $49. Now, that's US dollars. It will be going to the full amount of $297 probably by the end of June, I'd say. But for now, I've listed at the $47 introductory bonus price. And you can get to that from my website. There's a little window that you can click on and sign up. But it is US dollars, so anyone in Australia that's listening, don't be surprised about that. That's just how the program operates. But apart from that, I've got a couple of talks coming up. I've just done a couple. I got to talk to the lovely women from the Returned Soldiers League a couple of weeks ago on how to cope with stress and how stress impacts you. So that was great. So little things like that. So they're my main things. I think my book, when my book's ready, I'll blast it to the universe and back, which will be my coffee chats with Mum. But that's something that I need to do gently and in the time that it needs to take. I'm not giving it a set time. So, but it will be this year. So.
Lovely.
And see, that's me dealing with grief. Sometimes I look at the photos and go, I can't go there. So.
Right.
Other times.
You're leading by example there by saying, you know, it'll be sometime this year, but you're not putting a definite time on it, which is a way. No, I should, but I'm not. Well, is there a need for shoulds? I think we help ourselves by putting intentions out there, and then I find if that's where I'm meant to be, if that's what I'm meant to be doing, oh, voila, I'm doing it almost before I know it. So, and that's my way of going, oh, right, well, yes, I'm listening. Fantastic. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Yeah, you're right there. It will happen as it's meant to happen, and I also know that Mum, being the co-producer virtually of it, will have a lot to say energetically. So I'm quite sure I'll get this little, clip around the ears when if I'm being too tardy, or continual messages. Look, when someone passes, it's very, very sad. And I was actually, I say blessed, but at the time I wasn't fully blessed. But Dad and I cared for Mum at home. So her palliative care was through Dad and I, because we were so busy arguing with government departments as to what constituted someone dying that they forgot to think that Mum was actually at that stage. And the morning of her passing, Dad and I had this code. They lived in a granny flat, and if he needed help during the night, he would turn the outside light on because he hated the mobile phone, so he didn't know how to use it. And so all night long, I'd be getting up and down and checking through the trees to see if the light was on or not. And the night before I left she was really tired that night, and I said, oh, well, I'll see you in the morning. And I said to Dad, are you okay? And he said, yes. And I woke up that morning, and I don't know if the alarm hadn't gone. Something happened, and I had to take a bit of extra time getting my husband's food ready for him to go to work. Okay, and I didn't get down quite as early as I normally would. And my dad would wait for me to come, and then he would go for his walk. So I got down there, and Dad said, oh, I didn't feel like walking today. And I said, oh, okay. And I looked over, and Dad said, make your coffee, and then I'll go and have my shower and stuff like that. And I made my coffee, and I walked back to say good morning to Mum. I'd already greeted her and stuff. And and I noticed her mouth starting to move. Now, Mum's mouth had been frozen for the last 5 weeks, and her mouth was moving. And I said, Dad, Mum's trying to talk. And you know what? I'm sure as I am sitting here that Mum was saying to me, why the hell are you taking so long this morning? I'm ready to go. I couldn't connect to that straight away, but I'm so connecting to it now. So as I said, she'll be very quick to tell me if she thinks I'm taking too long to get this book out there. So, but yeah, it was just the weirdest time. It really was. So, because she waited.
Sure.
And that way you knew it was kind of her saying to me, it's okay, I was okay. And I waited for you so that you knew I was okay and I wasn't left by myself, you know. So it was that her last gift to me. Oh well, her last gift in life to me. I haven't seen of others. So yeah.
Oh yes, I mean life. It's fascinating and so much. You know, some people, as they're passing, wait for us to be there. How often, especially if people have had to travel from overseas, you know, people will hang on and then pass. And at other times, they choose to pass on their own when their loved ones are out of the room.
I know when that happens, it's their way of saying you didn't need that final. For me, I needed to be there. Okay, so for me it was quite essential that I knew she was okay. But other times the person who's passing has that, their final gift is to say, you do not need to see my last breath. So therefore, I've said goodbye to you, you've said goodbye to me, and that doesn't need to be your last picture kind of thing. So it's very much, and they do it with a great sense of thanks as well. They're so thankful for the help that they've had. And it's their way of limiting some of the grief. It's not a guilt trip. It's a thank you so much for being with me for when you did, and this is my one gift left for you. So think of it that, you know, if you're listening to this and whichever way it has happened for you, know that it actually has got nothing to do with you. It's all about the person who has passed, and it's their way of shielding you or gifting you whichever they felt was in your best interest. Again, there's no right and wrong. It's just what is. And if it went this way or went that way, it was that person's way of honouring you and your care of them.
Yes. Life and death. You know, we come in and we depart when
it's
our
only
mission.
Certainty, hey. It's life's only certainty is that we will all die. We will all pass on.
Yes.
And I think we have to know. I think whilst we're here, we have to gain our own sense of what will happen afterwards. You know, so it really doesn't matter whether you believe someone else has gained that knowledge, but how about gaining it for yourself? My understanding of life is we're here to experience joy and happiness in our own life first, in whatever that means for you. And if you then can share that with one other person in your life, you've done your job. You've come here for that reason. You've experienced joy and happiness. So, you know, don't try and, but I haven't learned enough, I haven't seen enough, I haven't done enough. To get it. Get the joy and happiness. Get that through. And then you can then stop searching for whatever. Search for joy. What gives you joy? What makes you happy? How can you instill that in one other person? Anyone else is a bonus.
The thing is, Marnie, sometimes we look for joy and happiness outside of ourselves, and we have to find it within. You know, what is it that I do? When do I feel happy? And then to use those times, like when So I know what I'm passionate about and I know how I feel at times. And so then if there are other times in my life when maybe I'm feeling a little less joyous, then to put myself in a situation where I know I'm absolutely exuberant and to foster some of that. So to recharge, if you like.
That's why we've got the ability to have memories. Those memories help us tap back into those joyful moments and those blessing moments. You know, and music does a lot of that too. Like they're doing a lot of experiments at the moment where they're playing music and music of the time to people that are experiencing Alzheimer's. And people, it touches a chord in their memory. It touches their heart and their soul. And you'll find that they'll have momentarily glimpses of awareness again. Because remember, the person that has lost their memory are not experiencing the grief that you are. Because they're in their own little mind. They're in their own field, and they would have a different concept of what's going on. It's the person who's watching their loved one go through that feels the grief. So their grief is long and delayed. And right at the end, it seems so long that they're almost frozen. So let the ice melt. Do it gently and let the ice melt.
I trust that what we have discussed this morning has been useful and will be useful to others, because there is so much for us to learn in this lifetime. We've had some gems this morning. You know, hugging ourselves, feeling the joy, feeling happy, being kind to ourselves, so that when we're not feeling joyous, to embrace ourselves and to give ourselves permission to feel that way. To be aware that if it's momentary, if it's a day, well then that's okay. If it's something that continues, like, you know, to curl up and say, well, I'm having a day in bed or I'm having a pajama day, I see that as a treat.
Yep.
However, if I was feeling like that day after day for a while, that would then ring warning signs to me that, hey, this isn't usual. Let's do something about it.
Ask for help.
Yes.
Speak up.
And it's important, no matter what we're going through, that we do ask for help, because I know how I feel when I can assist other people. So therefore, I also need to remember that by asking somebody for help, I'm giving them the pleasure of being able to assist. And
we mentioned too, you don't have to take on their burden. You just need to be there for them. And that could be just to sit side by side next to someone without any conversation going on. Your heart and soul will do all that. It doesn't need to be verbal. You know, let your hearts talk, let your souls talk, let your energy comfort another person.
Beautiful. Listeners, if you would like to reach out to Marney, please do so on Kinique, KINIQUE.com. If you would like to reach out to us at Angel Heart Radio, it's also easy to do, angelheartradio.com. It's been an absolute joy to be with you today, Marney. Thank you so, so much. Listeners, it's always joyful to be with you. Thank you for joining us today. If you would like to hear more of Marney and myself, please visit angelheartradio.com. You'll find lots of shows there, and you'll find lots of shows with the other presenters such as Deb Goldberg and Anaya Joy Holilly. I look forward to being with you next week. In the meantime, make sure that you find the joy and love and pass it on.
You've been listening to another fabulous program on Angel Heart Radio. Our goal is to remind you of how much you matter in the world. and to let you know that we appreciate who you are in the world. You can check out who's on, when we're on, and who our guests are at angelheartradio.com. Everything is there. It's all just one click away. Angel Heart Radio programs are powerful tools to help you in your life and your life experience. They are not intended, nor should they, be used to replace your medical or legal advice. The views expressed by hosts, co-hosts, callers, guests and associates should not be construed as advice from Angel Heart Radio.